Hey guys, today's video is all about 5 things you need to consider for PhD applications. Now you might be finishing your undergraduate, your masters, or you might be in a gap year where at this moment in time and for the next few months you might be considering doing a PhD and you may be unsure about what things I need to look out for to make sure I'm applying for the right PhD for me, for the right areas, for the right reasons. You may know about the things you need to do in an interview, what things you need to write in an application, but sometimes we actually forget right at the start, which is whilst we are applying, even searching for PhD positions, what should we look out for? If that's the case, this video is spot on for you. So without further ado, let's get into those 5 things. And number 1 is all about the research group activity. Now, when you're applying for a PhD, in that kind of job spec or in the little background when you're applying for them, you'll see the name of the research group, the name of the PI or the professor. Do your homework on that person. Because if you search their name, you'll find recent papers, you'll find maybe their co-authors or people who are already in the research group. You can find it through the university website, through their, the LinkedIn profiles. You can do a bit of digging, thankfully, because of the uses of online features, to do your homework on the research group to see how active they are. Because, believe it or not, you're going to be in that research group if you do apply and you are successful. And instead, the research group has not won any funding recently, hasn't been publishing that much papers. It's going to make it very difficult for you to have a successful PhD. And there'll be a running theme throughout this video about, yes, you need to make sure your supervisor is really positive, enthusiastic. But if the person is really enthusiastic but doesn't have any funding, no matter how amazing they are as a person, as a supervisor, you will not be able to publish a lot, and then that's going to be a massive, massive hindrance for you in your PhD. So the research group activity is incredibly important. Look at what journals they're publishing in, look at how big their team are, look at what facilities they have and what connections they have, whether it's through industry or companies, or they have a lot of collaborative work with different universities. From finding that one person, you can do a lot of homework. Yes, it might be that it's not a great place to work, but we don't know that yet, especially at the first thing. If that area isn't well funded, isn't that supportive, because at the end of the day, when you're writing a PhD, when you're doing a PhD, if you don't publish, it's sometimes incredibly difficult to get ahead, to get a postdoc, to get work, especially if you're in the quantitative world, in the kind of the lab sciences. Publishing research is paramount. So research group activity is incredibly important. Just search their name, and you can actually find out a lot from that point of view. Now, number 2 is actually going further into the supervisor history. So when you are searching for PhDs, the PI will most predominantly be your main supervisor. So whilst you're in the first part looking at the research group as a whole, you can find out about the supervisor themselves. And what I mean by that is, if they've done or been doing research for quite a while, they might have had previous PhD students, and you would find them through the research that they've published, and you can actually maybe contact those people, because quite often if they're all part of a paper, they may have their email address or contact details, or you can find them through social media, through LinkedIn. You can reach out to say, hey, I recognize that you did a PhD with so-and-so group. I'm actually considering applying that. Is it possible to have maybe a quick chat or grab a coffee if they're local, or over Teams or Zoom or Google Call, and then ask, how did you find that experience? Because most predominantly, a lot of them are finished and moved on to a lot of things. They're not tied to that research group. They're not tied to that university, meaning they can be actually quite authentic. They can be quite, quite candid about, it actually was amazing. I didn't like this or this, but I actually really enjoyed it. However, some other people actually say, do you know what, I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy my time as supervisor. Yes, I got this or this out, but personally I wouldn't recommend. If that's the only choice, then fair enough. If you enjoyed that research area, then that's understandable, but potentially you might want to look elsewhere. And that's valuable information, because you might have saved yourself a lot of torment, a lot of struggle, whereas maybe another PhD position might be more catered to you. And sometimes I actually think about that. I'm like, if I went to somewhere else, would I have been able to publish something? It is what it is, and we, learn from the choices that we make and decisions that we make, especially in our career. But do your homework on the supervisor itself, especially from the notion of finding past PhD students, even how they are. You can actually talk to colleagues and ask, how is this supervisor? Even colleagues within the university, or students, even undergraduate students who get taught by them. You can actually learn a lot of information there. So you can do your homework from that point of view. Now, number 3 is very similar to number 2, but from a slight different point of view. Now, you may have, done your homework on the supervisor to find out their, experiences of the PhD students, but now you also need to look at the credentials or the qualifications those PhD students gathers whilst under that supervision from that supervisor. So what I mean in simple terms is, those previous PhD students, did they publish stuff? Did they go to conferences? Did they learn other skills? Did they were able to collaborate? Did they have, the ability to work internationally for a few weeks at other universities? Did they get any industry experience? Were they able to do teaching? Were they supportive from that point of view? So there's the, say, pastoral care where, was the supervisor a good supervisor from that point of view? But then there's also the side of, was that supervisor good in terms of my career? Did they support this? Did they were able to do this? And that's very important difference to understand. It's perfect if you can get both, but, and this is actually a very, very important point, you may have a difficult supervisor who's very, potentially maybe slightly harsh. Yeah, it might affect your mental health and you don't want to go down that route. But imagine if you have that and then they don't even care about your work. And here's what I'm trying to understand is that I have seen a lot of places where supervisors are actually a bit difficult. And sometimes no situation is perfect, is ideal. Like, yeah, supervisor's hunky-dory. That is very rarely the case. If a supervisor is difficult and harsh, sometimes you have to kind of put up with it and stand our ground as a student over time. But if that team is generating a lot of data, publishing a lot of work, that's actually really valuable insight and information and usefulness for your career, because you may be able to deal with that harshness and, you may become a more effective supervisor. And I've seen this the case many a time. It's not, a popular opinion, but sometimes we potentially look at, oh, this person like this, and we over dramatize it where we can just say, do you know what, I'm not happy with that. Let's have a better working relationship. And that's not easy as a first year PhD student, I understand. But what I'm trying to get at here is that having a supervisor, irrespective of their nature, to a point, I'm not saying extremes, to a point, having a supervisor who's maybe like that, but generating a lot of data, publishing work, having grants, it's not a bad trade-off. If the person's really, really abusive, etc., fair enough. That's not worth your mental health, you should get out. But no supervisor is going to be amazing and supportive all the time. There may be some who may not be there as much, but they may be able to help from other means, if that makes sense. And that's why this PhD student success comes in, where a lot of students may say that, working with supervisor was difficult, he or she had a lot of problems and this and that, that's fine. But I was able to publish. I did go to conferences, I was supported that way. So I can't blame that person from that point of view. You see what I mean? And number 4 is all about the university itself or the institute itself, wherever you are thinking of applying for a PhD. Because the track record of the university as a whole does directly affect that research group or that faculty or that institute in particular. So look at their ranking tables in terms of research, do your homework of the university to say, are they initiating something new within research? Have they pumped more money into that area? Have they dropped down in the rankings perhaps? Have they, especially in the area of your expertise or the ones that you want to go into, have you seen an increase in their support of their funding for that facility, for that lab or for that area of research? You can even potentially visit. You can go on open days and visit and ask academics from that point of view. Yes, they won't tell you the absolute truth, but if you go there, you don't see that much, but you go to another university and you see more, and they've invested a lot of money, then you may be potentially more likely to get money for conferences, extra money for support, and these things are really, really helpful, especially when you're doing your PhD. So you've done your homework on supervisor, done your homework on the research group, but do your homework on the university itself and see where have they changed up or down over the past 3 or 5 years in terms of research. Have they developed a new framework? Have they got new people on board? And a lot of this you can find online, and you can actually talk to them and find out from them, because the last thing you want to do is go to university where they've dismissed a lot of research, they've cut down on a lot of research, where then you're more constrained, and the more you're constrained, the less likely you are to be able to generate more data, to be able to publish research and excel. So that's very, very important to do, and there are many ways you can actually do that. Really important. And lastly, number 5, and something that we potentially all forget, especially if you are an international or prospective international student looking to go to a different country, look at the place of residence. Look at the city where you potentially might be doing that PhD in, because you want to think small and long term and look at the bigger picture to say, is this a city where I can potentially enjoy myself? Again, try and visit if you can, or look online. You can get YouTube videos of people, doing a day in their life of a city and people's experiences from that particular area. And what I mean by this is that you want to look at, is this a great tourist destination as well? Is the area actually quite useful for me to maybe travel, learn new things? Is it also a good destination for me to be there and then travel? Is it like a good midway point between different countries or other different cities? Is there a place where, I can explore, learn new different things, especially if you're that type of person? Because if you have that luxury and you have that ability where you don't mind going different places, then you want to go to a country and a city where you think that you'll gain a lot of experience, you have a lot of memories that you potentially create, you may enjoy that area, you don't mind learning a different language or learning the people there. You may have people who are from there, you may have friends or family, relatives, or people who are already doing a PhD and say, this country is great, or this city is actually really amazing, they've got all of these fun things. So imagine, for example, let's say for me, I love playing tennis. I love, that type of weather as well. Maybe there's a city who has a lot of sports facilities, and that'll be amazing. That have the opportunity to maybe, play tennis more often, play squash, play, badminton, football, or soccer, whatever it is. And you can actually look at it from that point of view where if I'm doing the PhD for 4 years, I want to be at a place for 4 years. Let me make sure I enjoy that particular city. So make a list of things that you enjoy. And does this city cater for those things? And make a list of things that you haven't done yet. And does that city potentially allow you to do that? Again, it's not always the case, but whilst you're applying, there's no harm in actually verifying that city and that country to see if it matches up with you. So guys, those are 5 simple tips to look at when you're applying for a PhD and going through your PhD applications. And if you did find that useful, if you did, just having a thought, if you did, do consider liking the video so it shows and grows to more and more people. And if you did like the video as a whole, you may want to subscribe. It's up to you. I would value you if you did. It would make me happy if you did. You can see it over here. It's literally just there. Maybe I'll try to capture it. Just there. And that would be really supportive for me and the channel. And if you want to find more shorter form content, where you can just browse, especially if you're on Instagram page, Aamir.phd. And last but not least, I promise, the newsletter for more insights on a weekly basis. Link is in the video description down below. But I should let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I shall see you next week. Enjoy your applications if you're applying for any applications. If you want especially any advice as well, feel free to reach out. Email me, Aamir@ResearchTribe.org. I'll be able to get in touch with you through there. It's probably the best way to contact me. And I shall see you soon. Take care.